All right, well, we'll go ahead and kick it off. I'd like to thank everybody for joining us this morning for this cybersecurity webinar. We're fortunate enough to have Trent Hein join us. Trent is the co-CEO, co-founder of Rule 4. Trent's also recognized as one of the world's leading experts in infrastructure, cybersecurity, and automation. Rule 4 is a certified B Corp. For more information about Rule 4 and Trent's commitment to our communities, please visit rule4.com. Also let you know that they specialize in cybersecurity and emerging technologies. Trent, couldn't take it away, please.
Fantastic. Thanks, Bonnie, and good morning, everyone. And thanks for joining us today to talk about cybersecurity. This is an incredibly important topic that's near and dear to my heart, and I think we're going to have a fun time this morning. Can you guys see my slides okay? Everybody's good? Fantastic. So just a couple quick words about me. I'm a Colorado boy. My great-grandparents homesteaded here. I have a degree from the University of Colorado at Boulder in computer science, and really have spent my career focused in the cybersecurity space. I was telling someone last week that this is my 33rd year in cybersecurity incident response, which there's two sides of that. On one side, it's like, yeah, I've done a lot of this, and on the other side, it's like, wow, it's really sad that we're 33 years into this crazy internet thing and still doing cybersecurity incident response. So hopefully today we're going to talk about a few topics that are relevant to all of you when it comes to cybersecurity. And I really want to stress all of you. What I brought for materials and what we're going to talk about over the next few minutes applies to folks in their personal lives, applies to small business owners, applies to folks working in a corporate environment. Really, wherever you are, I think this is information that's probably good to have in your back pocket and to know how to protect yourself and how to respond if there's an incident. So let's talk about some of the things that have been in the news lately. I often say there are no boring days. Folks ask me, like, how do you like your job? It's like, well, I like my job. Every day is different and never bored because sadly, it's not a great time. Well, it is a good time to be a cybersecurity professional. It's not a great time to be an internet user or someone who deals with technology a lot because there are so many threats. It is one of those situations where anytime there's a prize, right? If I can, as a threat actor, if I can get financial gain, or if I can get information that's going to benefit me in some way, there are people in the world that have time on their hands to go do that, time and motivation. And because they have time and motivation, it's something that does happen and that we have to protect against. One of the maybe sad things about the last year, and of course the last year has been unusual in so many ways for so many people, but we saw that the attackers or the threat actors really took advantage of the COVID situation. So what happened, if we turn the clock back 14 months or so to last March, what happened is the whole world in this pandemic was turned on its head, and folks felt vulnerable, and they didn't know what was going to happen, and they didn't know about COVID, and they didn't know would there be a vaccine, and would they be able to get vaccinated, or were they going to get sick? And so that vulnerability, unfortunately, has been used by attackers to increase the number of attacks and really increase the severity of attacks. We see a lot of COVID-19 related attacks in the cybersecurity space. And that's a weird thing to say. You'd be like, wait, we're talking about a pandemic, you're talking about cybersecurity, how do these two interact? And it's the human vulnerability component, is that as soon as we as humans are vulnerable, that's a weak spot that they can go attack, and certainly did. And so we'll talk about some examples of that. Let's talk about two specific things in the news real quick before we dive into some more details. There's two things that have defined 2021 so far in the cybersecurity space. First is this SolarWinds attack that you may have heard of. It was on all of the news channels in December. So at the end of 2020, what happened was there was this software vendor called SolarWinds that a number of large organizations, businesses, corporations used their software, and they had been hacked. They'd been hacked by an attacker that then planted what we call a Trojan horse or malicious code into their product that then got distributed around the world to a variety of businesses and every branch of the US federal government. And so by December 31st, we see an order from the Federal Cybersecurity Agency here in the US that all federal agencies had to take immediate action to address this. Well, a couple thoughts here quickly. One is, we're talking today about cybersecurity from a personal standpoint, from a business owner standpoint, from a corporate standpoint. Even the US federal government was not able to effectively prevent this attack. That's the level of threat that we have right now. And that's why we all have to be aware. It's on all of us to have some awareness and to know what steps to take. Secondly, I do think it's important that one of the lessons that we all take away from this is that just because I am running an application, whether it's on my phone or it's on my tablet or my computer, that it's from a trusted source, and I'm going to put trusted in air quotes, like Microsoft, or in this case, SolarWinds, that does not mean it's secure. And so we're going to talk about what are some of the steps that we need to take in a world where we really don't know the origin of the applications and the systems that we're using. Secondly, I want to highlight this Colonial Pipeline ransomware attack because the last couple weeks it has been top of mind for a number of people, including if you've seen the news channels. Individuals had to wait in line to get gasoline for their cars because of a cyber attack. So what happened there? The Colonial Pipeline folks, they obviously as a pipeline transport petroleum products in the Southeast US. They use technology, they use computers to manage that pipeline, and those computers were not well secured. And so those computers got attacked. Ransomware was installed on them, which we're going to talk about in just a minute. And then as a result of that, they couldn't move product through their pipeline, and that affected consumers in not being able to get gas. Why I want to bring this up today is the level of impact that these types of attacks can have. Could it happen here in Colorado? Absolutely. And there are a number of critical infrastructure components that could be affected. Yes, we rely on those infrastructure providers, folks providing us drinking water, or folks protecting our streets, traffic lights or whatever. We rely on those folks to secure those environments and keep them safe. But we need to apply those same rules and have that same knowledge when we talk about our personal lives, small business, and corporate environments. So with that as a landscape, let's spend just a couple minutes diving into some details. So what has been the impact overall? Impact overall is we expect $20 billion in ransomware damage by the end of this year. And we're going to look at ransomware from a how does this function and how does this affect individuals here in just a minute. But the reality is, on the corporate side, the average ransom, right? These are attackers who affect an organization, be it small business, government entity, city, state, pipeline, whatever, and then say, hey, we got you. If you want to get out of this situation, you're going to pay us money. You're going to pay us a ransom. The average ransom that was actually paid last year was $1.1 million. And that's scary because regardless of where you are, either personal technology user or small business, large business, these are real dollars, and that's a lot of money. And that's why we have to take this very seriously. I will mention that we have law enforcement assistance in protecting and responding to these events, right? Including the FBI Cyber Division is huge. They respond to 4,000 complaints a day, which, as you'll note in the slide, is a 400% increase over the before times, over the pre-COVID times. And so on one hand, it's like, oh, cool. We have law enforcement buddies. They'll help take care of this for us. And that's absolutely true. It's like these guys work hard every day. what I will say is they are only able to scratch the surface. They are under-resourced, and they would tell you this. They are under-resourced. They don't have the manpower, person power, or the time to address every single issue. And that's why the burden is on all of us to be aware, to protect ourselves, and to respond accordingly if something happens. So let's talk about first, how does ransomware work? And those of you just tuning in, you might say, wait, why are we talking so much about ransomware? Well, let me tell you. Ransomware, unfortunately, is about 80% of the incidents that we see today. There's certainly the incidents we've seen in the news. They've affected critical infrastructure. They, especially towards the end of last year, in again, probably related to the COVID vulnerability, affected hospitals and health systems. We had a number of hospitals and health systems completely offline for weeks in the fall as the result of ransomware. And even as late as last week, there were hospitals offline in the US as the result of ransomware. Because again, the threat actors know we're vulnerable. More than ever, we need our healthcare system. And so if they can attack them and get them to cough up 10, 20, $30 million in ransom, they profit from that. And potentially on the other side of that, we may have had a life safety effect, right? Well, if that hospital was offline, were they fully able to treat patients during that time? I'll leave that to you to think about. So how does this work? I think it's good to understand, because while we talk about these big ransomware demands in the hospital systems or in critical infrastructure, this happens to people at home. This could happen to you on your PC, in your home office, personal information, not even related to some business entity. So what happens? Well, first off, a system gets infected. How do they get infected? The number one vector, and this is all on you guys to prevent, the number one vector is phishing. So phishing, spelled with a PH, is an email that is sent to you, and it tries to trick you into doing something. It says, oh my gosh, you've just won an American Express gift card. All you have to do is click on this link, log into this site, and you can claim it. We'll send you a $500 American Express gift card. Or it might be something even more tricky, like, oh, we just processed your payment to Acme Industries. Thank you so much for your business. And you receive that email and you think, well, wait, I didn't pay Acme Industries. I better go check that out. Well, it's a trick. As part of clicking on that link to Acme Industries, they ask you a few questions. Oh, we need to verify you so that we can show you your account, your name, your social security number, maybe your credit card or your bank account information so that we can tie it to the invoice that you paid. And then they're going to show you this invoice that supposedly you just paid. But what they really did was they stole your information that they're now going to go use that information against you. Or they're going to install some program on your laptop, your tablet, your phone. And so that's how this usually happens. 80+% of the time is that the user clicked on something they shouldn't have. And so I'm going to stop right there and say the number one thing that you can do to prevent being in this situation, either at home or at work, is stop, take some time, look at those emails really carefully, and think about, do I do business with this organization or this person? Was I expecting this request for information from them? Could this be phishing? Could this be suspicious? And just take that extra 5 seconds to think about it. And my guess is that almost every time you're going to be able to figure out pretty quick, like, oh, that's a phish, and I should just ignore it. Don't click on it, don't act on it, don't open it. So anyway, that's how this starts. As a system gets infected, they then install software, a computer program on your system that encrypts the data so that you can't get access to it. And they may also take a copy of it. That's what exfiltrated means, that they're going to take a copy of your data. So let's say that you work in a dentist office and they're able to get a hold of your PC there. They may take a copy of all of those dental patient records and store it for themselves because they're going to threaten you with them later. Then they're going to show you a screen that says, hey, you've been attacked by ransomware. If you'd ever like to see your data alive again, you need to pay us such and such a dollars. And these folks are smart. They're going to scale that dollar amount based on your ability to pay. If you're a hospital system, the dollar amount is going to be in the 6 or 7 figures. If you're an individual at home, that dollar amount may be a couple $1,000s. And you might shrug your shoulders and say, it's technology. I don't care about this data anyway. Unfortunately, I do think we're in a world where there's a lot of data we may care about. And I'll tell you from personal experience, right? Like all of my kids' photos of, sporting events and music events and things they've participated in, I don't have those printed out in a paper photo album anymore. They're all digital. And so if you're in a similar situation where you have photos you care about are now on this PC that's infected with ransomware, that data may be at risk. And we'll talk in a few minutes about, well, how do we prevent that and how do we respond to that? But you might be tempted to pay the ransom. And there's 2 schools of thoughts on this. One is, well, you needed your data back, and it was the balance of, do I pay the ransom or do I accept that the data is lost? The other side, which is a little harder to get our heads around, is, am I fueling the fire? If I pay the ransom, are they just going to go attack someone else or attack me later? And what are they doing with this money? Is this money being used to do bad things in the world somewhere else? And so that's a hard decision. But the bottom line is you'll have to make that decision if you're in that situation, or your IT department, depending on what environment you're in, will have to make that decision. And then what? Well, unfortunately, let's back up to who attacked us. The folks that who attacked us may not be the cream of the crop of society to begin with. They also may not be the best programmers. And so in a number of situations, we do see folks pay the ransom. They give them the secret key to get their data back, and it either doesn't work at all, or it kind of only partially works. We say it's like, oh, this wasn't software that was built for production, which really means we're relying on an already untrusted party to take money and give us a reliable product. And that sometimes doesn't go well. So we need to think about that. Like, that's the level of risk here, because I see some individuals and some business organizations, their strategy to deal with this whole space is, oh, if we ever get affected by ransomware, we'll just pay the ransom. It's not a big deal. Well, it is a big deal, because paying the ransom doesn't always get your data back to you. And likewise, remember when I said they may have taken a copy of your data and might threaten you with it later? We've also seen folks where we paid the ransom and they still disclose that data to the world, all of our patient records or all of our credit card numbers or whatever it was that we were trying to protect. So that's a brief summary of the ransomware space, which unfortunately is probably, if it's morning time where you are, if you're watching this live or watching this on a recording, might not be a good thing to watch over breakfast. Let's talk about what we can do, right? Because we're not helpless. We can get to a better spot, and we can try to prevent this from happening and be prepared if it does. And that's my goal here. So first and foremost, let's talk about cybersecurity as a practice. What we as folks in the modern world seem to want is instant gratification. Can't I just pay money and make this problem go away? And unfortunately, I'm going to share with you, in the cybersecurity space, there's no such answer. I can't go buy some black box and plug it in the corner, or buy some software package, or even pay some person out on the street who's really skilled in this and just say, here's some money, make this problem go away. Instead, we have to be proactive, we have to be vigilant, and we have to be aware. And that's why we're talking about this with all of you today. And unfortunately, some of these tips are very motherhood and apple pie. Folks I know are going to roll their eyes when I say them, because it's like, well, of course we need to do that. Yet every day, and I'm going to pick on the Colonial Pipeline people, the Colonial Pipeline people failed to do the most basic steps to protect their data and their environment. And so let's not fall prey to that. Let's not end up in that trap. So what are the first tips we need to know? One is know where your data is. What is that data that you care about? Is it your kids' soccer pictures? Is it your patient database? Is it your banking records? Is it your tax forms? I don't know. You have to answer that. But first and foremost, you should do a mental inventory, or even better, make an actual written inventory of here's the data I care about, here's the data that I need to protect, and then know where it is. Oh, all of my kids' soccer pictures are on the PC that's in my home office. That's probably not a great answer, but at least I know it, and that's where I can start. Secondly, once we know where it is, we need to have a defense in-depth plan to protect it, right? What happens if that PC gets infected with ransomware? Or what happens if a crazy hailstorm comes and rips the roof off my house and that PC gets sucked up in a tornado? I don't know, seems unlikely, but it could happen. And so we should be thoughtful about where is that data? How do we protect it? Along those lines, and you're going to hear me say this probably too many times in the next 20 minutes, is always have an offline, we say air-gapped backup. What does air-gapped mean? Air-gapped means that we have a copy of that data that is not connected to a network, right? There's no network cable the electrons can follow to get to that data. And that might be as simple, I'll tell you what I do, is I take my kids' soccer pictures and I put them on one of those removable USB drives that I can buy at Best Buy or Staples, or pick your favorite box technology store for $40. I copy all of the data I care about onto it, and then I put it in the safety deposit box at the bank, so that even if the roof gets ripped off my house in a tornado, or hackers get control of my system, I know I can always go get my kids' soccer pictures out of the safety deposit box, and I would encourage you to do that. And so from a personal standpoint, that is a practical approach. If you're a small business or a large business, unfortunately, a lot of folks in the technology space will say, oh, we have a copy of that in the cloud, or, oh, we have this RAID, which is this box of disks where it makes multiple copies across multiple disks in the box. Oh, it's protected there. That's not enough. We need an air-gapped copy, and whether we write it to a second system and unplug it and plug it back in once a year, or we write it to offline storage, there's a number of different strategies. There are some write once technologies that we can use to store data in the corporate environment. Whatever that is, we need to make sure that there's no digital path, there's no electronic path for a hacker to get control of it and delete it. One of the incidents I worked on last week, they had deleted the organization's backups. So they came in, encrypted all of their storage that was online, and then they also deleted their backup storage. That put the organization in a really bad spot. Never use the same password for different sites. Now, motherhood and apple pie. I'm sure some of you are listening to this be like, oh yeah, of course, yeah, shouldn't use the same password for different sites. What does that mean? That means I should not use the same password for my online banking account that I use for Facebook, that I use for Twitter, that I use for Instagram. Every single one of those services, whether they're personal or corporate or somewhere in between, should have a completely different password. And when I say completely different, that doesn't mean if I'm a big fan of terrier dogs, that I put Terrier 1 as my password on one site and Terrier 2 on Facebook and Terrier 3 on Instagram. They need to be completely unrelated. They should not contain any information that is personal, like my kids' names, my aunt's name, my dog's name, the street I live on, anything that an individual could tie back to you should not be a component of your password, because they are that sophisticated, they are that smart. I emphasize this because especially when we deal with individuals who have been hacked, this is almost always the start of the problem, that they use the same password or passwords derived from a similar root across multiple sites. Now, the next response I usually get when I say that is like, well, then I would have 130 passwords. How would I keep track of them? yes, you would have 130 passwords, and you should be using what we call a password vault. There's a lot of great software out there. Some of it's free, some of it's small fee, like $1 a month type of software, where it securely stores your passwords and in fact will often populate them within a browser. You know, when you go to that site, it'll say, hey, I see you're visiting acme.com. Would you like me to supply your acme.com password? And it will do it for you, so you don't even have to type it. I use, and I have no affiliation with this organization and do not get kickbacks from it. I personally use a product called 1Password. I love it. It runs on my phone, it runs on my tablet, it runs on all my laptops, and it keeps my passwords synced across all of those devices. So I put it in one device and it's magically available on the others. I would encourage you to investigate a password vault if you've not already done so, and store your personal and your corporate and your crocheting club passwords in a vault so that you can have unique passwords everywhere. Next is always use multi-factor authentication. What does that mean? That means it's not just username and password. It means something you have and something you know. So something you know is like username and password. Something you have is often these days some type of physical device like your smartphone, where you can get a text message, or maybe there's an app on it that will give you a number or a code that you can read off and type in. But that is critical to protect against these phishing attacks that I described earlier, in that even if they're able to get your username and password by tricking you into clicking on some invoice you actually didn't pay, they don't have your smartphone, or they don't have the dongle that's in your pocket. And so that is a key protection. And the good news is, in the banking space and the financial space, that is a required part of online banking today. In some form, every bank in the US already has that implemented. Where it's not so implemented is outside of banking. We've started to see it become more popular in healthcare. We've started to see it become an option in social media platforms. So for instance, you can enable it on a variety of social media platforms, and you absolutely should. But then once you get out of that, like, oh, my crocheting club or whatever it is, they may have information that's personally identified that you care about. And you should see if there's an option to enable multi-factor, and if so, do it. And if not, you should contact them and say, hey, if I'm going to continue to use this service, I really need a multi-factor authentication option. Okay, so those key things, which are incredibly simple: know where your data is, have a multiple layer plan to protect it, make sure you have air gap backups, don't ever use the same password across different sites or services or applications, and always use multi-factor authentication. If you did all of those things, chances are you and I will never have to talk at 3 in the morning about, oh my gosh, I feel like I just got hacked. And so those are simple things. I am begging you, please think about them and see where you can implement them in your personal life, in your small business life, in your corporate life. If you are a business leader or owner, the thing you need to do today is think about backups. And I specifically mean today, not just because we talked about the Colonial Pipeline issue, but unfortunately, we are just about to enter what we call the high season of ransomware. And now someone's going to say, Trent, you must be kidding. Ransomware doesn't have seasons. Oh, it does. And the reason that we have seasons in ransomware is because the threat actors, which are often based outside of the United States, know one thing about the US, and they know that we have a holiday at the end of May called Memorial Day that effectively works like this. Come midday Friday of Memorial Day weekend, all of us pretty much check out, step away from our keyboard, not to touch them again until Tuesday, the next week. That is 3+ days that they can plant an attack, launch an attack, go encrypt a bunch of data that then we walk in Tuesday morning and they present us with that ransomware screen. And so it's true, ransomware has seasons, and high season is just a couple weeks away. So today's a great day to ask yourself, where are my personal backups? Where are my business backups? Okay, we talked about 5 things. We talked about some of these already. We talked about MFA. The next couple things that we should all be aware of personally and in our business life: do we have antivirus and anti-malware? These days, that's pretty easy to get on Microsoft platforms. Microsoft even gives us Microsoft Defender on most of their software. If you're on a Mac, that's probably the next most popular platform. Sometimes folks say to me like, oh, I'm on a Mac, I don't need antivirus. Nothing could be further from the truth. There's a whole bunch of fantastic Mac antivirus platforms, very inexpensive, like $2 a month type of cost. Please invest in one today if you have not already. And then patching compliance. Well, what does that mean? That means installing those annoying nagging updates that I get that say, hey, there's a security patch available for your system. Install and reboot, yes or no. And as the instant gratification society, we're often just like, nope, I don't have time for that, go away. I'm gonna beg of you, please say yes to those on your phone, on your tablet, on your laptop. If you have a corporate IT environment, they're gonna probably force you to do it. But do that for both the operating system level, like the Windows system or the iOS or Android operating system on your phone, but also for applications. And so whether you install applications like Adobe or Spotify, or you've downloaded programs on your smartphone, go to the app update screen and make sure occasionally, and don't have to do it every day, but once a month or maybe every 6 weeks, take the time, sip a cup of tea while it updates and, look at the beautiful sky outside while your system is rebooting. Take that time to apply those updates. And then this final item on the 5 things list is data classification and security awareness training. What does that mean? That really is what data is important. That's the classification part of that. And then where is it? How am I protecting it? That's the awareness part. Let's keep moving. One of the things that COVID has brought us, trying to look at the silver lining, is a lot of opportunities to do online collaboration. And I'm going to take it, right? Like, it's great. We're here today because we can securely collaborate and talk over Zoom. But there are some do's and don'ts of that. And let me say a couple things. One is things that you should do. If you're going to share data online, make sure you're sharing it in a secure platform. What does that mean? Well, it starts with those motherhood and apple pie things, like, is it a platform that requires me to authenticate to it with multi-factor authentication, username, password, some other thing I have, like a code from my smartphone? If you can't answer that, that's probably not a secure platform. Educate your users and yourself on what is sensitive data and how it can be appropriately protected. Since First Western Trust folks have been so kind to bring us all together today, I will point out that bank account information is sensitive data. Make sure if you are sharing it electronically with someone, you're doing it in a secure way. And that means it needs to be protected so that only the specific individual that you intend to see it can see it. We'll talk about that in just a minute. And the other side of do is, if you are in a support role, whether it's you are in an IT role and you're providing support, or maybe you're just the power user of a particular application in your organization, like you're the person who really knows how to run the loan analysis tool, and you want to share that with your coworkers. Don't tell them how to do it, show them. Find a remote support tool where you can collaborate, share the screen, and show them directly so that they know you're a trusted party. You can understand what they're really seeing, and they don't mistake a malicious pop-up for what is legitimate, that type of thing. So take the time to have that tooling in place. Let's talk about the don'ts. Don't send sensitive data in email. Do not ever, 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 ever send things like bank account numbers, credit card numbers, your kids' social security numbers, your dental office patient list, whatever is sensitive to you. Don't send it in email. Email is fundamentally not secure. You need to use some type of secure file sharing service. I know if you're a customer of First Western Trust, right, they have a secure share file service that they'll use to exchange documents with you. Make sure that that's how you communicate with them. Don't share sensitive data in a video conference. I think folks often think, oh my gosh, I'm on video, I can say whatever I want. Well, you can say whatever you want. Others may be listening, and you need to always be aware of that. Excuse me. And then finally, and I know you're gonna get tired of me saying this, don't manage data in sensitive data in an online platform without multi-factor authentication. This includes payroll. Why do I call that out? I call that out because one of the other forms of attack that we've seen on small business here in the last 12 months that's been very prevalent is direct deposit diversion. What does that mean? Well, that means most of us as business owners are using direct deposit to pay our employees. And of course, as a result, we store the employee bank account number and then, slip their a paycheck into it on the payroll date. Magically, we don't have to deal with paper, and it's wonderful. It's wonderful until someone gets a hold of that information and changes it to be their account, where all of your direct deposit payroll now goes to the hacker's account. It's incredibly difficult to claw that back, and so please make sure systems like that, if you're doing any type of cash disbursement, whether it's payroll or paying vendors, you have multi-factor authentication protecting that platform so that they can't get control of it through some type of phishing email. Okay, one more slide and then I want to answer some questions. What to do if you get hacked? I hope, I'm going to cross all of my fingers and toes, you never get hacked. I hope that you got something out of this talk and we never have to talk about it, or you never have to talk about a cybersecurity person is like, hey, I got hacked, what do I do? But just in case, sometimes it's better to be prepared. First off, I always tell folks, don't panic. Why is that? Well, there's been a lot of PhD theses written on this very issue, especially around cybersecurity incident response, is that we get completely different outcomes to the incident depending on what happened in the first few minutes. And so if in the first few minutes, folks panicked, they'll often take steps that put them in a worse position, put them in a worse spot down the road. And so I know it's hard to internalize, but I need you guys to think about, hey, if I get hacked, stop, pause, take a deep breath, be like, it's cool, we can get through this. Hopefully it's not a life safety issue. I'm going to say whatever you got hacked with, it's not going to be a life safety issue. Don't panic, but act quickly. Take it seriously, but just be like, yeah, well, this is not the day I planned for. We're going to get through it. I'm going to get some help. It will be okay. And that's what I tell all of the folks I work with on incidents is it's going to be okay. Let's just work through it together, and we'll work through it methodically and as quick as we can. All right, if you suspect ransomware, if you think that your PC or your coworker's PC or your phone, or I don't care, has been hacked with ransomware, the first thing you should do is unplug that system. And the reason I say that is that there is significant risk that that system is then going to spread to other systems in your home network, or your corporate network. So maybe your desktop PC got hacked at home and your 14-year-old kid's laptop is also on the network. They're going to go after that next. And so unplug that system as quickly as you can. And I literally mean unplug it. Like take the power cord, the network cord, however it's connected, physically pull it out. If it's a laptop that's on battery, hard stop it. On most laptops, you can hold down the power button for 30 seconds or whatever, and it will turn itself off no matter what it's doing. Keep a log, especially because folks tend to panic or have a pretty serious reaction to situations like this. It's easy to forget what happened in those first few minutes or hours. And so I would ask that, I don't care if you write it on a napkin, spiral notebook, type it in Microsoft Excel. I don't care what format you keep it in, but write down what you saw, what you did, who you talked to, so that then over time, we can go back and say, okay, here's what happened and here's the root of this situation. This is a time to get help. And I often tell folks, know when to ask for help, and this is one of them. If you think you've been hacked, whether it's at home or in a business environment, that's not a time to be embarrassed or feel like, oh, this is my fault. It's not your fault. This happens to all of us. This happens to cybersecurity professionals. This happens to CEOs. This happens to first time on the job workers and everyone in between. Don't be embarrassed, but get help. And so don't think, I'll just handle this on my own, or no one will ever find out about this, or this is going to go away. Those thoughts are all not good thoughts in this case. And so reach out to, if you're in a business or corporate environment, reach out to the technology team. Or if it involves a particular entity, like if it involves your bank or your doctor's office, reach out to them and say, hey, this doesn't look right. Can you help me get through this? You want to contact them, you want to be honest with them, and they will help you. Report incidents to law enforcement, especially things that involve financial fraud. So if it involves your credit cards, your bank accounts, real estate assets, brokerage assets, any of those things, report those to the FBI. They operate the Internet Crime and Complaint Center. We call them IC3. There's a URL here on this slide, and the First Western Trust folks, I'm sure, will make these slides available, where you can go online, report the incident. And again, I said they're understaffed, but they are there to help, and they do respond eventually. Like maybe not like within an hour, but eventually they will get back to you and work with you on what's the next best step. And one of the things is it takes a village. If all of us report all of the cases of this, they are often able to correlate those as like, oh, that's this same hacker that got these 3,000 people's accounts, and then they can go prosecute them. And so it's important to share that information. And finally, if you're affected personally, whether you're affected personally on personal assets, your home computer, or corporate, business assets, you may want to consider purchasing identity theft protection if you don't have it already or haven't been given it free by one of the many other breaches. That does help you monitor where is your personal information being used, where is it being sold or advertised as, hey, pay me 30 cents and I'll give you Jane Smith's personal information. Those platforms do help, and I would encourage you to invest in that. It's not expensive. Okay, that's what I brought for slides. Would love to answer some questions. And so if you want to type, I think Bonnie said questions into chat. Let's spend just a few minutes doing some back and forth.
So Trent, there's a question in the chat room from Erica Blake.
Yep, I see that.
Great.
I can read it. It says, is it a good idea to get a routine scan to see if the computer has anything malicious on it? If so, how often? And what is a good resource for this? Absolutely, it is a good idea. And it depends a little bit on what platform and what environment you're in. Is it a personal asset, corporate asset? If it's a company managed asset, usually they will have some central platform to do this. If you are managing a personal asset, or if you're a small business, then absolutely, you should have some plan to do this routinely. And I would say you should do it in two cases. One, you should do it at least monthly. So even if nothing has happened, you should do it at least monthly. I often use this platform called Malwarebytes, and that's a little bit of a pun. It's like it sounds, malware, M-A-L-W-A-R-E, and then bytes, B-Y-T-E-S. That's the computer term for that. It runs on Mac OS, it runs on Windows, and it will go do a scan. So I would do that at least monthly. Or if you ever just feel weird, if you're like, that was suspicious. I saw this little flicker out of the corner of my eye in the bottom of my screen, or I got this pop-up I wasn't expecting. Anytime you see something like that, then I would also initiate a scan. So at least once a month, and then anytime you see something weird. What other questions can we talk about?
I've got one for you, Trent. So I use Norton 360 on my home desktop.
Yep, great.
It comes with a vault, which I use, but I use a different one on my phone. So it's called OI Safe. It's the same thing, right? So these systems, they obviously don't talk to each other. There's a lot of duplication there. Is it a better idea to just have one? That's one question. And the other question is, most of these vaults will they'll auto-generate passwords for you. Is that something else to maybe take advantage of?
Great questions. So I'll give you a couple answers. So I think, and I'm not a psychologist, but I think the cyber psychologist people would say, you should move to one platform for password management because you are more likely to be compliant as a human in your behavior in that lower effort situation of like, I put a password in here and it magically appears over here. And so, it's really up to you personally. There's not some technical issue that it has to be in one platform, but from a just user compliance, I would encourage you to adopt one platform. And then secondly, you ask about password auto generation. Best practice is yes. Those password auto generators generate random complex passwords, which is exactly what we want to see for strong authentication, versus you trying to make one up like, oh, what should I use today? I ate tacos for lunch, so I'll make it tacos123. That's a terrible way to make a password. The random generation method is a great way. And so, yeah, I would use the built-in password generator wherever you can. It's also then easy just to cut and paste it, and you don't have to mistype it 4 times. Let's see.
A couple more in the chat room there.
Yep, I see. So here's a great question. Should there be a limited number of people who have access to air-gap backups? The answer is yes, absolutely. And so in a small business or corporate environment, usually that's limited to a couple people that have ability to do what we call backup recall. So for instance, if you sent it off to a safety deposit box or secure storage location, there should be a limited number of authorized people that can recall that data back, because you don't want a hacker to recall that data and then erase it, which is a great segue to, let me point out, and this is something about human nature that makes me sad, is that when we look at cybercrime statistics, the FBI does a great study every year of like, well, how did all this cybercrime happen? We see almost 50% of incidents in a business environment involve an internal actor, meaning that someone in the business was involved. And so, yes, it should be limited to a small set of individuals, but also true in your home life. And so I would encourage, and I won't throw any of my kids under the bus, but I would encourage, like, hey, I'm going to copy all my kids' soccer pics off to a drive, and I'm going to go store it securely. Only then you and whoever you trust in the household as an adult should have access to it, because you might have a kid who's like, oh my gosh, I need somewhere to store this great game I downloaded. Here's a drive in the closet. I'll just use that one. Yeah, don't do that. Make sure it's segmented from folks who might use it for something else. Do Google cell phones have built-in antivirus and malware? The simple answer to that is yes. So as part of the ecosystems in Apple and the Google environment, they do some level of app screening, but it is imperfect. And so I want to be careful when I say that, because yes, those apps that you download and the platform itself has some built-in protection. But just like I started this talk and said, well, we can't always trust things from trusted parties like Google or Microsoft or Apple or anybody else. The same applies here. So if you see something suspicious, stop and think, is this right? Is this device or app behaving the way it should be? Because the answer may be no, even if it was protected by Google.
So I've got one more for you, Trent. So this was, I attended a cybersecurity event several years ago, and this one didn't make sense to me. I asked the question, okay, if I shut my desktop down at home, like off every night, and the gentleman that was giving the seminar, I asked the question about, well, once it's shut off, my understanding is the hard drive is not spinning, can't be accessed. Is it true that that the desktop cannot be accessed if it's powered down?
Oh my gosh, I knew where this question was going. The answer is no. So, well, you said power down. So like if you physically pulled all its power sources, the power cord, whatever battery it has, then yes, at that point it can't be accessed. But I think the common case is, oh, I click shut down on my desktop and it turns off the screen and powers down and the drive stops, the fans aren't spinning anymore. It's like sitting quietly in the corner, completely dark. You're like, is that in a state that it can't be hacked? And the answer is no. So, and why is that? The answer is for better or worse. I was certainly well intended. In the late 90s, there was this protocol invented called Wake on LAN. And what Wake on LAN does is it allows you to send a network command, a network packet to a system that is shut down and say, hey, buddy, I need to talk to you for a minute. Can you wake up? And it will power up that system. And so it was intended to be used in corporate environments, ironically, for security patching, so that you could have everybody shut down their systems at the end of the day and go home, like in a bank. Everybody shuts off their computer when they leave for the day. And then the IT team at 4 in the morning wakes everything up, patches it, and shuts it back down, so that you come back to your desk in the morning and magically everything was patched, even though you had shut down your system overnight. The security impact of this is crazy, in the sense that, yes, it is possible to wake up systems that are actually, quote, completely dark and shut down.
Can that be disabled?
It can be disabled in modern network cards. And so, and that's probably a too much of a technical answer, but yes, you can go into cards manufactured in about the last 10 years, you can go into the driver configuration. So you have to go find the hardware for your network card or interface in the operating system configuration screen, and you can uncheck the box wake on LAN, and then it can be disabled.
Great. Looks like we got a couple more questions there as well.
Should copies of checks or tax returns be sent via email, even with a security code? No. Always use some type of secure file transfer program if you're sending any things like checks or tax returns. I had a case here a couple months ago. I worked with an organization where because of COVID, their bookkeeper was working at home. And so instead of sending an envelope full of checks to her, they're like, well, we'll just scan them and email them to you. Those scans were compromised in email. And then all of those individuals who had written checks, accounts were compromised. And so, yeah, don't scan checks, send them in email. And tax returns also usually contain sensitive information. All right, well, I think we're about at time here. Thank you guys so much for inviting me, and please reach out. You can always reach me at trent@real4.com. I love talking about this stuff if you can't tell, and I'm always happy to answer questions. So reach out if you have questions or if there's ever anything I can do.
There's one more question in the chat room about, if powered on but not connected to the network, could it be hacked?
Yeah, that's a slippery slope too. So it depends on what you mean by hacked. What we have seen and what we saw in the SolarWinds incident here in December was they planted code that didn't execute for 8 months. And so if you had a system that was on the network months ago, and then you took it off the network and you're like, cool, I'm secure, it's off the network, that is probably not a sound conclusion. You would have to take extra steps to that. So could it actively be infected off the network? Probably not, but it may have already been infected, but that just wasn't apparent. So you have to be a little careful with the, like, oh, I'm going to take it off the network, it's safe now. It may already be compromised.
Trent, I want to thank you for your time and expertise and knowledge that you just shared with everyone. We've recorded this webinar, and we'll make it available. We've had several folks reach out already saying they'd love to see the recording of it. So we will get that processed and made available to anybody that registered. You know how to reach Trent if you have any specific questions for him. We want to thank everybody for attending. Again, thank Trent for his time this morning, and wish everybody well.
Yep, have a great day. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.